Alright guys, let's come back again. I hope you're doing that and enjoying your day so far after winning the $50,000 case on land. Neptune with a few thoughts on his new teammate Envoy and Ghosty, believing that they were seriously underrated in what they contributed to last year's LA Thieves team, and even going as far to imply maybe Thieves made a serious error of judgment in their roster changes this season. Nadeshot gives his thoughts on the matter as well. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Loads to get into today. We're going to start here. Yesterday we talked about this, the CDL changing the rules when it comes to the revenue split of the monetization for the CDL skins, basically. So it used to be, according to the article, that all the money that was generated, 50% of it ends up in Activision's pocket, 50% of it ends up in the pockets of the teams, but 75% of that for the teams would go to the team that actually sold the skin, or who it was for, and the rest of it would go into like an overall global pot that would get distributed to everyone. That is set to change, so the teams will only see their own revenue, which is probably fair, to be honest. I mean, it is like literally how that would make sense. But at the same time, it does mean that some of the poverty organizations are in a more tricky spot because they can't just, you might argue, leech off the general sales. Now, of course, if you're not an OpTic, a Thieves, a Gentlemate, a FaZe, maybe a Toronto Koi, some of these brands, it's going to be difficult to sell the bundle, but okay, you've got to lock in, maybe do some advertising, right? And that will actually bring in some revenue. The YouTube deal isn't a thing this year, as we know, so yeah, some of those poverty orgs are going to struggle. There's not many left, as we know. And the CDL seems to be in a reasonably good spot, but it may well spell the ends of the Ravens once and for all. We know that Los Angeles Gullers are finally gone. Anyway, Adam Adamu from Toronto says that actually this is not a brand new thing. This has been happening over time. This change was agreed 2 years ago and has been rolled out over the last 3. Every team was aware. It is why you are seeing so much rebranding and bigger brands entering. Full access to our microtransaction sales is a huge opportunity. So again, this is, well, there's two ways to look at it, right? If you're a team towards the bottom of the sales, you're probably saying it's a huge threat. But for some organizations, this is an exciting opportunity because they're able to access the full 100% of the revenue that they generate from these skin sales, gives them more opportunities if they can really lock in on that one. Now, these are the new maps in the game. So they're adding 4 new maps in, well, literally 2 days' time. Season 1 is launching. Frustrating for maybe the CDL perspective that the CDL has confirmed these maps will not be considered, or any map pool changes will not happen until the end of January after Major 1. So we are stuck with it as it is. We are going to see a lot of Den over these next few weeks, that is for sure. There will be map pool changes, I imagine, after Major 1. This is Standoff. It looks like they've just brought back the exact Cold War version, if my memory serves me right. I mean, they've not changed the theme or anything, and that's fine. I mean, Standoff is Standoff at the end of the day. We know what it plays like. We had it in Cold War. We had it back in Black Ops 2 as well. Some of the maps, they've changed the theme. They've changed the location. They've done a few things, but this looks like pretty much identical, which, there's no problem with that as far as I'm concerned. Makes it easier, right? You just copy and paste the map back in again, and it still plays, well, it's still laid out as it did. Will it play the same with the movement in this game? Maybe Standoff could work for Search and Destroy. I just don't see this map working, unfortunately, in this game for Hardpoint. I loved Standoff Search or Standoff Hardpoint back in Black Ops 2. I think it was brilliant. Just don't think it's going to work the same in this game. And I also have some questions on why that they've brought back these BO2 classics. We talked about it a bit on the Dope Check show yesterday. Trey made an interesting point there. Look, if you bring back Arsenal or Frequency or something like that from Black Ops 4 or even some Black Ops 3 maps, Strongholds, Breach, I mean, they're bringing Fringe back, but it was the same as in Black Ops 6 as well. They've just copied it over for BO7. That launches as well in a couple of days. Excited to see how that one plays, although the pros are going to wait a while, it seems, before trialing any of these new ideas. But he was making the point that you're not maybe selling new copies based on maps that only were out in, let's say, BO4. You might sell more copies based on bringing back Raids, bringing back Standoff, right? Like Black Ops 2 classics. Even though with the modern game, the modern movement, I think that BO3, BO4 maps would just play much better in this game. I do think that Express, if they can find a way to turn off the train for Search and Destroy in competitive, and also Meltdown could still be very viable for Search and Destroy. but I think for Hardpoint it's going to be a little bit of a different story. Now, this Odysseus map is probably not really worth any discussion. The other two maps, though, are very interesting. So this is Utopia. We saw the map layout for this the other day, and it looks on paper like this could be the one. I mean, also the effort that they've gone to here. When I look, I mean, immediately you look at this, again, you see a little bit of retreat, I think, a little bit of raid. There was even some people talking about a little bit of Combine maybe from Black Ops 3. It's also got a little bit of 6-star, right? Like quite a lot of 6-star. I think that map for Modern Warfare 3 that Sledgehammer brought in, this is the kind of run through of the map. Looks pretty sensational as far as I'm concerned. That's Utopia. There's also Fate coming in shortly as well. Again, it looks like a bit of a smaller map, this one. It's got some seaside vibes, I think, for sure, from Black Ops 4. Some crossover maybe with a little bit of Tuscan as well. It doesn't look massive, but the map layout looks reasonable enough, so maybe that could be viable. And yeah, as I say, Odysseus warrants no further discussion. Another big update yesterday, while Zinni was looking at this actually, was on the OpTic Challengers team. So OpTic Nation, we know that Zinni and Scump are doing a bit of coaching over the last few days. They had Renegade. Now, Bound, I think, was on holiday when the game came out, or vacation. He comes back and, well, he started playing COD and was not having the best time over the last few days, right? So they didn't bring in, we thought it might be Illy at some point, but it was instead Neum and Kips. Those were the two alongside Bound and Renegade. But Bound called Zinni last night and said he wants to, 2 nights ago, I guess now. He said he wants to take a step back. He can't commit 100%. He wants to spend time with family. He had a spot on this team. His improvement was amazing. So there's a couple of things here. It looks like Bounds, okay, he talks about spending time with the family, but it's understandable, right? Ton made the point on the show last night that when he was killing it in COD at 15 years of age, he didn't want to go to Halo, because if he did, then he would have just been a bot, and then he'd have ruined his stock. So, you know, I get that logic. Bounds never seemed to be as fully into making the COD switch as some of the others have done. Lqgend was committed for a long time. Renegade, as we know, is very much committed. So Raspi's going to come in instead. Solid player. That is the new team. They're also going to be the 12th seed for the first cup, this OpTic Nation team. And look, Renegade's been looking pretty good. So it's kind of remarkable after about, I don't know, less than a week. Bound's now officially retired from competing in COD. So he'll go back to Halo. There is something still happening in Halo this season. We think that the DreamHack events where the COD's going to be. So there's DreamHack Birmingham at the end of March. There's DreamHack Atlanta in May. I think both of those events are also going to have Halo tournaments. May not be true, but we'll see. They're not going to be run by the official HCS, as we know, but there still will be something happening as some of the Halo guys wait around. But some of the Halo guys aren't willing to wait around. Now, Renegade, I think it's been impressive to see his improvements over the last few days. Scump was pretty mind-blown at this one. Renegade's hitting the flank here on Scar, spins on Yeez, takes him down out of the top building. So, yeah, I think his improvement's been pretty good to see so far. And, yeah, give it a little bit of time. He could, I think, be a serious force. Renegade has all the... He shoots very straight, right? So he has potentially all the makings of a quality player. Excited to see how that one goes. It's a great storyline that's emerging right now down in Challenges. It's going to be a big month for sure because, as we just mentioned, Cup number 1's coming up soon. There's a ton of Challengers Cups this month. There is at the start of next month, like the Elite and everything gets underway very shortly as well. So there's a lot going on in Challenges, a lot of key names this season as well. Maybe not as many Halo players transitioning as we thought, but you know, Renegade was always one of the key names and he is still here. And that does not look like it is going to change. These were the full final stats and scoreboards from that grand final series because it went so late. Things got a little bit delayed getting these onto the site. But Ghosty finished with a 1.36 KD. Neptune actually had one more kill, but with a lower KD, but he was playing with some serious pace. Envoy was holding his own. Shotzzy again had a very difficult series. People were saying that this poor guy was well past his bedtime, drooling on the controller. And yeah, we discussed yesterday the implications of this tournament, how much it really matters, whether things would have been different in different circumstances, whatever. The reality is, look, if Shotzzy had played better, given the circumstances, probably would have been a more competitive grand finals. Would OpTic have won guaranteed? Absolutely for sure. You never really know. It's an exciting one for the season to get underway. But Neptune, probably player of the tournament in many respects. I think you could argue Ghosty as well, but yeah, certainly Nep on that Gentlemates team, as will come to no surprise to anyone really, is looking rather good. Hakes was having a pretty good time having a look at this scoreboard as well. But a couple of interesting clips to share, one of which, as soon as the tournament immediately ended, Sib gave a few thoughts on the fact that, look, OpTic have won literally everything since the World Championship earlier this year. So, look, it was about time that they lost to someone. And of course, that's what this team was capable of doing. But also Ghosty and Envoy, right? Because they've now played Thieves a couple of times. They've beaten them on all those occasions. And, well, Ghosty and Envoy were on Thieves last year. They dropped Envoy for aBeZy, which is understandable. They dropped Ghosty for Kenny, which, you know, in hindsight, I think is the more interesting change. I also rate Envoy very highly. I think he often gets overlooked and underrated. Yeah, he does have some stinker maps here and there, but I do think that Envoy has always been a quality player and probably falls into the underrated, overlooked category to some degree. If you also look at the objective stats from last season's Thieves, well, not even last season's Thieves, the entire CDL, Envoy and Ghosty were basically number 1, number 2, right? So they were doing what it takes last year to get the results. Now, Ghosty, we know that from a personality perspective, he does sometimes clash with individuals. He probably doesn't have the greatest relationship with Dashy after what happened a couple of years ago. We believe that HyDra wasn't an especially big fan of teaming with Ghosty. So, you know, in the context of that, I can see why that they made the change. And also in the context of bombing out of the final 2 events of the year, something had to give, that's understandable. But Neptune says, and probably fair enough, look, Ghosty and Envoy, they're better than people think, and kind of implies that Thieves maybe shouldn't have done what they did.
But OpTic's a great team, and I don't know. It was definitely a fun series.
They were due for a loss, bro. Like,
no
bro,
bullshit.
There has to be
no
a chink in the armor somewhere. God damn, they can't win everything.
No
what the
bullshit.
Fuck? Like, that shit is crazy.
It's definitely a fun tournament,
Them
though.
boys haven't lost since May. Hold on. Let me change that real quick. Yeah, shout out Kason, most importantly.
Everyone in the chat, bro, spam WKson, please, for everyone who's still watching.
We did in BO6. Mostly like Dan and Dill. I feel like them two, they always played for the win, bro. Obviously, like their teammates, I'm sure, like, you know, they're I don't know. I'm just not trying to like start anything. Like I think those two players did so much for the win, but obviously, like, you know, HyDra and Scrap, they're like obviously, you know, superstar type of players, whatever you want to call it. So like, of course, they didn't have to do that much dirty work because they were really good, and it kind of made Dan and Dill, it made them like kind of step into a role where it's really hard to like fry or like do really good. So I think people like in the off season were like actually shitting on them for some reason. When like, bro, this goddamn Ghosty spawns in, bro, 180 seconds in hill. Like, of course he's not going to be like insanely positive or something. But I told him as soon as we started talking, I told him, I was like, yo, like, y'all do not have to do that shit no more.
There's certainly a world where keeping the team exactly how it was last year could have been the play, could have been the right idea. I don't think it would have been the wrong decision. I just think from my perspective, it's tough when you have like a super team and you fall short of champs in EWC. We just didn't look like the same team. Like, we got off to a hot start. We almost won Major 1, lost Major 2. Major 3 and 4, we won. I mean, that's a pretty good fucking year. But when you don't make a splash at the big dance in EWC there shortly after, it's kind of just like, oh, fuck, okay, something might be missing here. Like, truly. I mean, I love Dan Ghosty and I love Envoy. You can believe me if you want. You can call me a liar, but I'm being dead serious. I love those guys, and I thought we had a great team. But after falling short of champs in EWC, bro, it just felt like you had to make a change. And I think Kenny and aBeZy and Scrap and HyDra, they're going to figure it out. And I think we're still going to have a really good year.
It's understandable why Thieves made the move. And it's also worth understanding that if it doesn't work out with Kenny, I still think it's too early to say convincingly one way or the other how it's going to go with Kenny. And I don't think Thieves are terrible right now. They did beat FaZe at this tournament the other day. I think Thieves are ripe to get upset by teams that they wouldn't expect to lose to. But I don't think they're a million miles away from where they need to be. And I think with time, they still can be very competitive with Kenny in the lineup. But also, Kenny was not the first choice. They wanted Cell, then he went to Falcons, then they wanted Drazah, right, who said absolutely nowhere but team with Scrap. That's our understanding anyway. So Nadeshot says, yeah, we had to do something, and that was fair enough. it's difficult to say exactly where that stemmed from, because there was a rumor, if you guys remember, shortly after the World Cup or after Champs or whatever, that Thieves were not going to change. I think it was after the World Cup. They weren't going to change. They were going to keep the roster. That apparently is what the players wanted to do. Then others at the organization made different decisions. And, well, who knows where it came from, right? Was it HyDra? Was it somebody else? And then HyDra and Scrap were on board with it? Who knows? But the point is that Envoy and Ghosty were doing a lot of work last year for that team. And I think their contribution to the success, as Neptune said, was to some degree overlooked, which, to be fair, is always going to happen when you've got Scrap and HyDra on your team. That new iteration with Kenny and aBeZy, they will need to adapt certainly what they do in terms of hill time, because Ghosty had no issues sitting in the half once for 3 minutes a game. That's not how Kenny likes to play the game. So that's going to be a little bit different in terms of the way that they approach that. I don't think Thieves made a mistake making a change necessarily, but it is arguable that Gentlemate shouldn't have been able to form this roster in quite the way that they did. Maybe they would have done anyway, but there's an argument that maybe FaZe should have gone and got Neptune, or Thieves should have gone and got Neptune, or maybe one of those two guys should have stayed on Thieves anyway, because it was fascinating to see the way that tournament concluded, with Gentlemates taking the victory, OpTic still reigning world champions, and these two teams, Thieves and FaZe, certainly not looking as good as Gentlemates right now, when arguably some of those players on the Gentlemates team could well have been either still or joined one of these rosters in the off-season. So yeah, I think it's very much too early to tell what things happen. I mean, we've literally seen 0 CDL matches yet, with 0 actual important tournament points on the line, apart from some prize money. So we'll come back to this discussion over the coming months, but it is a big emerging development. So very much interested to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.